Okay, we're live.
All right, we're live. Calling the meeting to order at 6:04. Just want to say thanks to all of our commissioners for their time, as always. We appreciate y'all being here. Pretty simple agenda, bit of a repeat from last time. So I think we can kind of smoothly flow through our agenda items tonight. We'll go ahead and do a roll call. Why don't I just do it? I'll start alphabetical by first name. Alex Robinette.
Here.
All right. Amy Rodnick.
I'm here.
Brian Nash. He's frozen to me. Brian, you may have to press the button.
He's muted. He's frozen here too.
Well, we'll signify him as present when he can log back in. Jamil Allen.
I am here, and I can attest to seeing Brian Nash's head on the screen.
And Jordan Scott here. All right. Any public comments on items that are not on our agenda tonight? So anything of interest or concern that we are not addressing in our public agenda. This is your chance and only chance during the meeting to address those concerns. And respectfully, if it happens to be something that's on the agenda, we'll ask you to hold it. If you are attending by computer or phone, you should see an icon on the computer. It's kind of in the lower center. You'll have to click that to raise your hand. If you're attending by phone, we'd like for you to press star and 2, and that will indicate that you would like to speak. All those who would like to address any topic, please do press that button or press star 2. We'll give it another 10 seconds just in case. And I think we got Brian back on.
Can you hear me at least?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. It keeps telling me I have some microphone error and I need to refresh the page. But when I did that, then things went kind of haywire. So.
Well, maybe we hold to where it's working. We'll go from there. All right. Seeing no indicators that anyone would like to speak on topics not on our agenda, we will then move into our consent agenda. Only item on it is our minutes from our previous meeting. Do I have a motion to pass our consent agenda, or is there anybody who would like to pull those minutes for modification?
I'll so move to pass it.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Amy, for your motion, and Jamil for your second. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor of approving the consent agenda composed of our minutes? I will do a roll call vote by how I see you on my screen. Jamil? Vote for approval. Say yes. How about that?
Yes.
Okay. Alex?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And Brian? He's mute again.
I'm a yes.
Brian,
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, it's a yes.
Yes.
All right, very good. And I'm also a yes. So motion passes unanimously. All right, we'll proceed into our regular agenda. The first thing we're going to want to talk about is just looking forward, and we may even come back to this at the end, but our meeting dates and times, item number 3, we kind of front run that. One of the issues we're facing is the expense of publicly noticing when planning and zoning wants to meet, it's $300 of taxpayer time if we have to publish in the Statesman. So it can be pretty expensive. So we kind of ran into a timing and a quorum issue. So we did not get public notice. And the thing about planning and zoning is we have to notice quite a few of our actions have to be publicly noticed in the newspaper. So this is a discussion time to talk about October, November, and December will be normal first Wednesday of the month. We're going to change it to 6 o'clock to allow for those of us. We usually went at 7 to allow people to fight their way through traffic to actually physically be on site at the meetings. We're thinking about moving it forward to 6 o'clock to enable staff to continue to just stay late kind of at their to stay late at City Hall and allow us to just hop in and get the meeting done. And that will be those first 3 Wednesdays for October, November, and December. Recall that in January, we typically don't meet only because a lot of people are gone that first January. So unless there's a requirement to meet, we likely won't meet in January. And then same program for February, March, April, and June. So these, what I say is we're kind of back to regular session, regular schedule. The main shift is that it'll be at 6 p.m. via online conferencing, no longer in person until that status is changed by the city. So one of the things I would encourage everyone to do is when Ashley sends out the quorum, the request for can you be there, we'd love for y'all to lock it down so that we can notice, and we'll spend that money to purchase that notice advertisement in the paper, and then we'll be able to meet on these topics. So I would love to have as full of a quorum as possible for the October meeting. We have a few items that we want to discuss that will have to be noticed, primarily the tree ordinance, changes to the tree ordinance. All right, that's the gist of that. Any questions on the schedule going forward? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move into a discussion on the residential tree canopy management. Since we don't have notice for this, y'all, it's basically the same status as it was last time. We have a few updates that need to be done just to make sure that the ordinance is referring to the correct sections, and you have those in your packet. And then there's one primary change that's being proposed by council for our review. And that change is to enable, if someone has a tree that's dying and they've spent the money with a certified arborist to try and save the tree, our current code then requires when the poor tree passes, it's kind of like kicking a person when they're down. They then say, well, now you also got to go buy a new tree, even if you've spent the money attempting to save the tree that was in bad shape. So they're adjusting that to say if the city arborist is able to connect with a certified arborist and understands that efforts have been made to save the tree, that they can waive the requirement for anybody to spend a significant amount of money to save a tree, or sorry, to replace the tree. Yeah, so I think what we're going to try and do at the next meeting, we'll have y'all look at it. Any discussion on that particular topic? We can't take action, but any further discussion on it? Have y'all had a chance to look at it, to the proposed changes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have not. I have not done my homework.
Not a worry. Well, we've got time.
Jordan, can you hear me?
Yes, Brian. Brian,
Jordan,
do you want
can
to
you
say
hear me?
something? I can't hear you now if you're talking. There he is. Brian, can you hear me? We can't hear you, dude.
You can see your hand waving.
Amber, is it possible for you to unmute him? I don't think you can unless he's able to press the button.
Brian, are you able to call in by chance? There's a phone number on the agenda that might have better connection.
Hey, Jordan,
Yeah.
while Commissioner Nash here, I'd like to just kind of relay some information. I had a long meeting with Amy and Wendy Hunley.
Carrie, why don't you unshare your video so maybe you have better internet?
Okay. How's that? Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Lengthens of how we could work with someone on it's I think that I'm sorry that they aren't here to comment on it, but I think their general temperature as well as mine was the purpose of the ordinance is to preserve the canopy. So figuring out a way to work with them, with a resident on the application fees, but maintain the replacement requirement to protect the canopy.
Okay.
Language for that, for the I do the of the central of Texas Arborist Society. I just was able to go to a training a couple weeks ago on oak wilt, and got some good contacts there, and I'm having them review some things. But there are some administrative improvements that need to be made that I've spoken with council members about. A couple of them. One is defining root zone, and then talking about figuring out how close a building can be a critical root zone, or how much you can occupy. Is it root zone? So, for going to the oak wilt training.
Carrie, you're cutting out really bad still right now. Carrie?
Practices.
Carrie? You're cutting out really bad. Do you want to just call back in on the phone number?
Sure.
And then Jordan, we didn't get a chance to tell you this, but Councilmember Hudson had placed a similar item on the council agenda at the last meeting. She's online. I don't know if you want to see if she's got anything to say around what she was hoping the Planning and Zoning Commission might consider.
Always happy to have council speak if she'd like the time. Carrie, if we're gonna put on Sarah, if it's possible for you to call in, that might be a cleaner connection. I missed quite a bit of what the information you were trying to relay. Perhaps it'd be best if you want to call in as well.
I just moved. Let's see if
Oh,
this
there we
is
go.
better.
Much
Is that
better.
Much better.
Okay,
Much.
great.
You,
So-
if it's anything like my kids with Fortnite, you need to basically sit on top of your Wi-Fi box and test your ping rate, and then you can win the game apparently. So.
Okay, so what I was saying was that I was able to attend an oak wilt training course a couple weeks ago, and through the course of that, made some great connections with the head of the Central Texas Arbor Society. And there are some things that I've spoken with council members about that just generally need to be cleaned up in the ordinance. One is defining critical root zone, and then perhaps offering guidance to staff as to how close a structure can be to critical root zone, or at least coming up with better guidelines for protection plans during construction. Another thing that I would strongly recommend would be to require that oak trees are painted as they are cut. That will help stop the spread immensely. And then another third item is defining what diameter of tree needs to be included on a tree survey. It's the ordinance says right now that you have to have a tree survey. It does not say whether that tree survey is only supposed to include protected species, all species, and what size diameter. My recommendation would be all species at or above a particular diameter. And I've reached out to Gene, the Arborist Society, to see what he would recommend and what some other cities are doing. And so he's looking into it, and he's going to offer some recommendations that I'll give to you for the next meeting.
Okay, that would be helpful. I will say I looked up a little bit of this stuff looking at City of Austin. And not to say that we want to follow City of Austin, and that the state did enact House Bill 7 in 2017. So we want to make sure that Charlie can help us make sure that our law conforms with the state law. I believe it does, but there's a credit, and I think we fit completely within this. Seeing as we just say you need to replant a tree rather than pay fee in lieu. But it's something we're going to want to take a look at, just to ensure that we are within this code. And then I will say what I'm noticing in City of Austin, again, not suggesting it, but it is a spot. They have pretty strict definitions of critical root zone and the percentage of root zone that can be dug into and by how deep. So, Carrie, I agree with you that we may look at what other cities are doing before we bring this to planning and zoning, just so that at the very least we'll know what others have vetted for that type of thing, whether or not we choose to go forward with recommending that or not. And we'll leave it there. Sarah, you had something on the agenda for the council meeting. Would you like to share that with planning and zoning? And sorry,
Okay,
I should say
got a hand raised.
Councilperson Hudson, sorry. Let me find
Okay. She can unmute herself now.
Okay.
Yeah, raising my hand is the only way I can answer you at this point. Yeah, the item that I had on the agenda for the last council meeting was due to an incident that we had in my house recently with tree removal. And the people cutting down the trees did not have a copy of their permit on site. It had been quite a while since the house was demoed, and a lot of trees were cut down at that time. And so there was no way for the neighbors to know that they had a permit to cut down more trees. And so it was a difficult situation for neighbors and for the builder that was cutting the trees and for the police officer that had to respond. And it would be helpful and hopefully alleviate some issues if there was a requirement in our tree ordinance that a tree removal permit be on site when any trees are being removed. And that, and the way I worded it was all adjacent property owners and anybody across an adjacent street was given a copy of the permit. And probably that could be done at the time the permit is issued, or like with a building permit, before the permit is issued, so that people have a chance to weigh in if that's deemed useful. I think it could be. But anyway, that way people are more aware of what's going on ahead of time, and it saves the police some difficulties because there was no copy of the permit available, and so nobody knew exactly what was allowed at that time.
Did we ever shift to utilizing that public database for, not the public data, but a database for permitting? I know council was looking at it at one point a year ago. And would that software be of any help to make public tree notices, tree permits?
So we're looking at moving to Encode for permitting. We talked about doing My Permit Now and hit some snags with them.
Okay.
And I don't know the answer with Encode. My suspicion is probably yes, because that's an integrative system. But I don't have a definitive answer. But we are looking at permits.
I don't want to get Charlie too upset with us for straying too far into talking about something not under this item or on our agenda. I was just curious, if we don't have it, then okay, we'll take that as an additional potential change to the current ordinance, which is the requirement for notice and permit on site, posting of the permit on site, and notice to neighbors.
Yeah, Jordan, one other item that I had brought up previously when we'd had discussions at council was the idea of having the tree removal permits issued in the case of where a home is being demolished, that the tree removal permit is issued at the time the building permit is issued instead of at the time that the demolition permit is issued. Because at the time of demolition, if you don't have a building permit, you don't necessarily know which trees need to come down. Mm-hmm. And the removal is being done with a, backhoe, not necessarily the most surgical of options for protecting surrounding trees. And trees can be removed in that case that maybe don't need to be because what somebody thinks they're going to put in when they demo the house may not be what actually gets approved when their building permit is issued. And there can be long lead times between demolition and the actual construction.
We will certainly add that as an item to be discussed. My primary question on that is we can issue tree removal permits separate from a build or demo. So it would seem to me a large hole that anybody could drive through of hey, I want to remove these trees. I'm not building anything, but I just want to get rid of them. If they fall within certain areas on the property.
That's true, but at least in that
Okay.
case, they probably wouldn't be coming in with a backhoe to do it.
Okay.
You know, if they're
The-
not
the
if they're not
next-
tearing down the house, they're probably using a chainsaw or something instead of a.
So I've
Instead
noted
of
Austin, I don't think allows and again, this is straying off topic, so can't get too far into it. I don't think they allow a demo until a building permit has been applied for. So meaning they already know what they want, and you can't demolish until you've got an application. So I'm not saying we should do that, but that's a different way. Alex, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I don't think it's required to have a building permit. I think you can just apply for a demo permit.
Okay.
Maybe Carrie knows that.
I don't know how City of Austin handles demolition
Yeah.
versus building.
Oh, are you talking City of Austin or City of Rollingwood?
Oh, City of Austin.
Oh, sorry.
And I'm not an expert on it by any means. So
They leave you?
okay.
Yeah,
I
I was
think
al-
for us, you can remove a house and leave the lot empty. There's no requirement to leave a house there. And
I was also going to add that there's some practical implications in terms of sequencing. One doesn't want to go too far on a set of plans if they don't know whether or not they can remove a tree. And at least in the case of relocation of a tree versus removal, you know, by the time you move it and address the root ball and prep the site and so on and so forth, that can be a pretty lengthy process as well. And so I just think we need to be careful and not create a situation where we're negatively impacting people's ability to commence construction on their house by a lengthy period of time because we're adding to either the design or the commencement of construction.
all right, well, we will do this. We're going to add that for discussion at our next meeting around the tree ordinance, and it'll be properly noticed, and we can dive right into it. How's that sound?
good.
Okay, any additional items for consideration? We do plan to officially public notice and take action at our next meeting. Any further items that anybody may have? Brian, who I think we may have just lost him.
Jordan, I was going to make one more
Okay.
comment. This is really probably maybe for Carrie's benefit. There's a gentleman named Michael Mbisi who used to be the city arborist for the city of Austin, and really good guy, very knowledgeable about trees. And he is now with Bartlett Trees as a private contractor, if you will. It may be, and I'm happy to arrange it. It may be worthwhile for Carrie to just visit with Michael, because I think he would be a wealth of knowledge in terms of sort of what has worked well and what has not worked well, both from the staff side as well as the private sector side.
And just to chime in, Jordan, you did not lose me. I'm here, but I have been, on mute. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Brian.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Carrie, if you think that connection would be good, please do reach out to Commissioner Allen, and we'll get it.
I know I have had the pleasure of working with Michael and have a good rapport with him, and he would be a great resource. He's already offered to assist, as has our regular arborist, Greg Fox. So I'm planning to send everything to a couple of different arborists and see what different recommendations we get.
Fantastic. All right, are there any additional concerns regarding trees?
The only thing that I would raise, and I know we're not voting, but we can discuss this next time, but I felt like the tree species that we came up with for our list of the tree ordinance, like a couple of them, like cedar elms, can be, you know, I think it's, that would be something that I'd want to discuss, is like some of the specific trees that we've identified in that. So, and I like the idea of the exception that we discussed, but we can talk about that next meeting.
Okay. We will add tree species on there and since they're already there, it'll be open for discussion.
Jordan, I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
It does seem like there, and I think I raised this before, but I can't recall, that people that are buying properties and letting them sit basically abandoned for sometimes years at a time are also not maintaining their trees, and the trees are dying. And it feels like, I don't know if there's something that we could say regarding maintaining the health and quality of your trees. But I've watched a lot of trees die on lots that were bought and never developed.
Okay.
I don't know if that relates.
I think it's certainly an area for discussion. I'll add, I feel like Amy tried to address this, or sorry, council member Patillo addressed this when she first wrote it. I'll bring it back up. Our own personal experience, we had some beautiful live oaks right on our property line that were in our neighbor's property, and we went through, we jumped through a lot of hoops to ensure that we didn't sort of chop all those trees off, all their toes off on our side of the property line. We had to dig a new electrical line and bury it. Because the trees were there, we had to bury it. They wouldn't allow an aerial line through that route, and the pole was behind the tree. Can't have an aerial route that goes through a tree or over a tree as close as it would have been. So we had to bury it. But when we were burying it, I did notice all they wanted to do was just dig and it was pretty deep. The requirements from International Code were like, don't quote me, but it was over 30 inches to top of the conduit. So we're talking 3 feet of digging right across the base of these roots. So that critical root zone isn't just within our property. It can sometimes involve the neighbor's property. I don't know if we want to even, I do want to open up the topic, whether or not we choose to take any action on it. It's just something we've tried to be very sensitive to here on our house. So I'll put in root zone from neighbors' trees. All right, well, I think we've identified a pretty good discussion. We'll work with Council Member Patillo and see if we can address some of these things, and we'll talk about them, and we'll notice for action at the next meeting. Amber, if it's been noticed for action and we don't take action, do we have to renotice for every meeting?
Charlie, weigh in on that. I think there's an action that you can take if you postpone it.
What was the question, Jordan? I didn't hear it.
If we notice for action as required, and we do it in the paper for October, but we've now got 7 items by my count that we may wish to discuss, and we may not actually take action at the next meeting. Do we have to renotice every month? Or is once you've noticed for public action, is once enough?
So if it's for an amendment to the zoning code, once you give notice and you've had your public hearing, then that's all. Even if you postpone action,
Okay.
That's all that's required.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we will get that noticed for our next meeting. We will hopefully be able to have Council Member Patillo join. We'll certainly discuss Council Member Hudson's potential amendments, as well as the potential amendments from our Planning and Zoning Commission. Any further discussion on this item? All right, hearing none, we're gonna go ahead and move forward. Although I just realized I mixed up my agenda, so let me grab it. Okay. 5, an update from the Rollingwood Accessory Dwelling Subcommittee. Jamil, I did not reach out to you. I have to apologize. I didn't say to y'all, hey, we need to have this at this meeting. I apologize. In your packet were the recommendations from our Rollingwood Accessory Dwellings Subcommittee. My understanding is they haven't changed much from when we talked about it a couple 6 months ago. And those recommendations are still there from the task force. So we didn't have a lot of people on our last meeting. We have more this meeting, but I think we maybe postpone and talk about what action we'd like to take with notice at our next meeting.
Yeah, so a certain P&Z member has been very kind to gently remind me a time or two that we need to move this thing along, and I have failed miserably. But I will reconvene the RAD and send out an email tonight to try to schedule a call. I believe where we left off was we walked P&Z through our list of items that we considered. We focused on about 4 or 5 that we thought were the greater priorities. P&Z asked the RAD to come back and put together a smaller list for discussion and or approval, and that's what we owe you guys.
Okay. Completely anecdotal. I did get a call from a neighbor asking what are their opportunities to build an office in the backyard where they would be able to socially distance work. So I do feel like there's perhaps a heating up of interest in this topic of what are we allowed to build, where are we allowed to build it, and how big can it be? There's interest. I've also heard of people wanting to do additions, and so there's some conversations around that going on in the neighborhood. So I think now's a good time. Y'all were ahead of the game last year when we talked to it, so good to bring it back in the middle of COVID for those who might want to build out an office space.
We need to get it done, and there's no valid excuse that I can offer other than just apologizing.
Pandemic. We could throw it all on COVID-19, you know? All right, y'all. Well, we'll look forward to that at our next meeting. But yeah, we definitely have a couple of neighbors who are starting to beat the drum on this a little bit. Would really like to understand what. I will be honest, I am pushing hard for this to become a part of our topic 7 in the comprehensive plan is push hard to get these kinds of questions in our next survey to our citizens to really talk about, do we have a problem with mother-in-law apartments? Are we concerned about short-term rentals? Are we concerned about this, the use of these extra spaces? Do we care if there's a kitchen? Do we care if it's in the front yard? Like, really try and get some feedback in a surveyed manner to really help us from a planning perspective and a zoning perspective, understand how the current residents of Rollingwood want to utilize their single-family zoned lots.
Jordan,
yes,
do you
ma'am.
want us to start crafting that survey just so we don't keep, putting it off? Would that be helpful if
I'd love it if y'all had some questions around it that you think you can do.
Yeah.
Y'all saw some of the frustrations about the way the last survey was worded. So I would really I'm not good at surveying. I got a master's degree last year, and it proved one thing: I'm a terrible researcher. So I'm just terrible at it. So
Well, I can't
just
guarantee that I'm good at
yeah,
it, but I can at least give it a try.
yeah, that'd be great. I think trying to just get an unbiased, hey, we just want to know what you all want to do.
Hmm.
Here are some of the topics we're wrestling with on P&Z. No agenda here at all. We truly just want to know what how do people want to use their lots in Rollingwood, and what would they be comfortable with?
Jordan,
Sarah
Sarah Hudson has her hand raised.
Okay, would recognize Councilmember Hudson.
Well, the comment that you made was exactly what I was going to bring up, was that the accessory dwellings is a prime candidate for discussion in our comprehensive plan. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was considered in the overall context of all of the work that's being done on coming up with kind of a vision of Rollingwood, and not rushing this one item ahead when we've got lots of other associated concerns that should be all looked at kind of comprehensively, right? So
Yeah, I agree, and I think my mind is if P&Z has some thoughts on it, the way we officially communicate that to council is by passing a recommendation, and that doesn't require council to approve, but it does get it on y'all's agenda and gives us an opportunity to kind of speak about what our thoughts are on this topic as additive to where the plan would be going. For us, we did a lot of work. We looked at a lot of stuff, but it was kind of last summer, and I don't know how much. Don't quote me on that, but we got more feedback, I think, in some cases on our. I always joke about the RVs in the front yard and the RVs in the driveway. We got a lot of feedback on that. We'd love more feedback on this topic as well. All right. Any other discussion then on this update from our accessory dwelling subcommittee? All right. Hearing none, we'll move on to topic 6, which again is this what we used to call estate lots. People compiling together lots. Again, this is part of the comprehensive plan. Do we have an issue of people compiling multiple adjacent lots into big lots, and what problems and what opportunities does that create? I've kind of flagged some issues that were brought up by our previous building official. You guys have a memo in there about some of the things he was concerned about. Our old code, you can drive a truck through it if you're not talking about sort of standard lots that the code was made for. Once you combine lots, the best example is if you combine lots in tandem on 2 parallel streets, the potential for what used to be the front yard of a house becoming the rear yard of the house behind it. Code would allow you to build as tall of a fence as you want, directly back a curb, kind of closing in the neighbors, that sort of thing. So I just want to highlight it. Again, I want to know, where does the city want to go with this? Do we want to start having that ability to combine our adjacent lots and go big? It's funny, we hear both sides. I've had people who are saying we should have the ability to split up lots, and then other people are saying we want the ability to combine them. So the code isn't necessarily designed for that type of scenario, and we may want to look at how we can, if we want that, then let's design our code for it and make sure it fits that kind of lot. And if it's not of desire, then we have to look at what does the city want and what would we want to do to prevent that type of lot. I don't have any additional information for y'all right now on this, but happy if there's any conversation about it to discuss it now. I'm hoping to get some stuff in the survey. I don't think a majority of people are thinking about this. It seems to become an issue when the plat gets filed, if that makes sense. So this is one of those tough topics where you're kind of looking out into the future, trying to estimate what problems might happen if, and those are some of the hardest things to deal with on planning and zoning. But we'd like to continue to see if we can get feedback from our community on it.
Do we have a and I'm sorry if this was in the prior survey. I don't know that it was, or if it was, I didn't see data on it. But do we have a sense as to what the level of interest or enthusiasm is for creating a mechanism for smaller houses in Rollingwood? I've heard from several people that have been here for many years that they've got, so much of their nest egg sort of tied up in their house and they'd like to stay in Rollingwood, but there's not really an option. Is that is there a lot of interest in that or just a little? Do you know?
I have heard that. I don't know if we've had the conversation about that, and I'm not sure that that's quite what the survey asked. And happy to transition to topic 7 to talk about that survey and the comprehensive plan. I think generally they've skipped the conversation about the need in smaller houses, and the conversation has jumped to a solution of apartments on Bee Cave is typically how I've heard that addressed. Of, hey, we have this space on Bee Cave, perhaps we can put some condominiums in there. So I really like the idea of, do we want to have the ability to create smaller houses within our single family? Do we want to have zoning as another potential zoning to create some smaller structures that didn't require such a large lot, and potentially do that in our single family? I think my answer to you is I don't think the survey hit that as a potential, and we should, for certain.
Yeah.
It should become
Thank you.
part of the conversation. Well, let's talk about that. We've invited Councilmember Massengill, who I hope is still on, and he is our liaison, and we've both renewed a commitment to start kind of trying to keep that communication link open between council and planning and zoning. Council addressed the comprehensive plan at their last meeting. It's kind of and I think perhaps best way to describe it from my take is we've slowed the process down a little bit. As you guys have seen in your emails, there were quite a few emails regarding what was described as a proposal. I would say strikes me as less of a proposal or a plan and more of a description of a range of options that were presented by Pegasus, rather than a recommendation that they do any one thing. That range being from do nothing, stick with the code you got, to pretty aggressive changes to our commercial zoning. That was kind of my take on it. Gavin, would you like to give everybody kind of your thoughts on council, where they're at, if you have an opportunity?
Sure, happy to do it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, I think you did a nice job kind of giving the synopsis. So we did have our last city council meeting and had a great opportunity to hear from the public, and I think had an opportunity for council members to maybe set the record straight or at least clarify, I think, where council is coming from with regard to the comprehensive plan. I think you did a good job explaining, some of the data that was presented that I think understandably made people pretty anxious related to some of the data that was presented by the consultant. Council had an opportunity to explain that that's not what we asked for. In some instances, we were surprised by it. But also to say, it's not a bad thing that they gave us those data points. It's good to know the information, but that's not really where we were going with it. And I don't want to speak for council. I'll speak for myself, but I think I have a general sense of where council was based on comments that were made. But there's really just not an appetite by council to go with those more aggressive plans for the multi-use commercial, those 3 and 4 story type recommendations along Bee Caves Road. So I think it was really healthy. It was a good conversation. I think I think based on comments and conversations that I had after the meeting, I think it put a lot of minds at ease, listening to the conversation and the dialogue by council. And we also had an opportunity to kind of explain, obviously zoning questions and zoning issues are a part of the comprehensive plan, but they don't necessarily have to be. And I think for a number of the council members, I know Councilwoman Hudson and I both sort of talked about other components of the comprehensive plan that are important to us and to other council members. I made the point that for me, the comprehensive plan is really an opportunity to pull together all of the various long range planning activities and plans that we've done over the last 2, 3, 4 years. One of our long range plans actually is much older than that. And I think it's an opportunity to pull those together in one kind of umbrella document that is a coordinated document or set of documents that really help lay out kind of the future of what we're looking at for Rollingwood. And that includes infrastructure planning, that includes utility planning, that includes traffic planning, that includes long-term financial planning. It includes the park master plan. It's just a lot of different components that really, I think, were lost in the discussion that had been had in the community up into our last council meeting. So again, I think it was a good opportunity. I think there were a lot of, and tonight, you brought up some other issues with the residential and some of those types of questions that we need to try to get to the bottom of in the comprehensive plan. So all that to say, I think it was a good discussion. I think there was some clarity given by the council and to the council from the public. And so I think it was a good opportunity.
Well, Gavin, thanks for updating us on council actions. We appreciate you being here and sharing our thoughts back with council.
Happy to do it. And I'll have more time on my hands and the next going forward. And so I look forward to being with you more often.
All right. On this topic, we're not noticed for a public session. Do we have the ability I do notice a lot of people have logged in. Charlie, is it okay to allow anybody who wants to discuss this to have 3 minutes to talk about it?
Yes, it is.
All right. Well, I will then open up the virtual microphone to anybody who would like to kind of give their thoughts on the comprehensive plan, concerns, hopes for where you'd like to see it and things you'd like to see it address. If you would like to do that, please on your computer, click the raise hand symbol. It's in the lower middle of my computer screen. If you're on a phone, please press *2. If you raise your hand, we'll go ahead and be able to bring you into the meeting and allow you 3 minutes to help us understand more about what Rollingwood wants to see in its comprehensive plan. I see Shanti on there. I feel like maybe her button's broken. All right. Well, no hands raised. I will say this. Planning and zoning has made a commitment to the city. I made the committee on our behalf to listen, y'all. It is truly, I think this has to become a neighborhood-wide discussion, and this can be a space in which people can discuss and a space in which we can listen. So please do read the emails that are being forwarded by the city. Take a look at them. And then also please do, sometimes it's easier to address those in one-on-one conversations. I've been able to chat with a few people to help understand their concerns. But as commissioners, I hope we take the mantle of being the ones who are there to listen and trying to listen to our neighbors, understand their concerns, and then see how, with the comprehensive plan, we can work with their hopes and concerns to sort of set a future for Rollingwood. So there will be, going forward until this plan is done, always an opportunity to speak publicly at our planning and zoning meetings. And we will continue to encourage those who wish to write in, and we'll read your comments, and those comments will be forwarded on to council and others. So we appreciate all those who are voicing their thoughts, and this is will become a great space for y'all to be able to talk with the public going forward. All right. No other business. Any other discussion on the comprehensive plan? Anything else that our commissioners would like to address or express?
Hey, Jordan, it's Brian. I don't have anything specific to address. I echo your invitation to have conversations with community members. I'm happy to have those discussions. I've talked with some folks already. I hope that our community can sort of have an open dialogue about this. I don't know how this comprehensive plan got off on what seemed like the wrong foot to begin with, just because everybody started getting really concerned that things were trying to happen without input. But it's sort of the intent, I think, of council and certainly the P&Z and everyone else, that this should be a dialogue and that we're going to sort of take the time to do it right. And that's the plan here. So I hope that rather than people just initial reaction being opposed to change in general, will be to have the idea of an open conversation to discuss sort of where things can change for the better of, you know, everyone or most, and try and solve some of these problems that I think are going to be central to the, you know, sort of continued success of our city over the next, you know, 2 to 20 years. So I just wanted to chime in about that. I really look forward to talking with folks about it, and I hope they do voice their concerns, but also voice their solutions and some of their ideas on how we can make a comprehensive plan that makes sense and sort of achieve some of the goals that people are setting out.
Thank you, Commissioner Nash, and I'll echo. We'd love to hear what people want, as much as we've heard what they don't desire. So, all right. Any other?
Add to that,
Alex,
Jordan.
please.
I think that when I was interviewed by Pegasus, one of the things I really emphasized was this community engagement, and that they needed to create some sort of forum like Nextdoor where people could exchange ideas. But we say we welcome ideas, but what happens is people just write individual letters, and there's not a rich environment where people can discuss it. And so I feel like if we had that, we could make good progress. But right now, we still don't have any sort of place or forum where people can talk about it. And what happened instead, I thought there would be a much longer, richer process of community engagement. Maybe, I know COVID makes that difficult, but aside from the survey, it just felt like survey results, council's going to vote on it. And I think that felt like people weren't included in the process. So if we can create maybe a place on the city's website or a new website or something where it is both official and user friendly, I think Nextdoor is kind of considered user friendly, then I think you would get a lot more engagement from people, and you'd have this exchange of ideas where people felt like they were contributing something meaningful rather than having to react to what was given to them to discuss.
Jordan, this is Amber. Wanted to address Alex's point. Council at the last meeting, as part of this discussion, talked about there's this online forum, and I think the city of Austin uses a platform for this, but it's unfortunate because you all as a commission and the council as a collective group don't have an opportunity other than publicly posted meetings to really discuss and have conversations about the topics that are going on. And so these online forums are public, they're posted, everybody can go in and view them, but it gives you all an opportunity to have additional dialogue that's in the public. So we're working on that. And then also did want to tell you, we do have a web page that's dedicated to the comprehensive plan. And also wanted to emphasize that what was presented was not going to be something that council was going to vote on ever. So I wanted to make sure that that was clear. The council was never going to vote on that. It was simply information presented. And then there was going to be more public engagement about where do you feel comfortable? Here's one end of the spectrum. Here's the other end of the spectrum. Let's dial it back. Let's collectively as a community come together and see what we're comfortable with. Like, obviously we're not comfortable with the really aggressive side of the spectrum, but that gives us a chance to say, all right, well, what are we comfortable with? It starts the conversation. It's a model.
Okay. I understood that there was going to be a vote in September, but I must have, and then that was delayed. But I must have misunderstood.
Amber, we appreciate it. I just got on the city's website. It's a little hard to find it, the website for it. It's under planning and development and then comprehensive plan. So I'll encourage all of our members and the public to hop on there, and it's got those reports that were done in the past on it, the commercial corridor studies from 99 all the way through 2020. So this is a great little site. I appreciate y'all who put it together.
Ashley did, of course.
Very good. We just got to get the word out.
That's right. And if you click in the banner, if you click an arrow over, it has our COVID information, then has our comprehensive plan information. But maybe we'll look for a better spot so it's a little more front and center on the webpage or on the website.
Can we get like flashing arrows that point to it? And,
information. And just also wanted to update you that at the most recent council meeting, we received direction. So we're going to be coming back to, circling back. We'll be updating the web page as we get more information and a timeline is a little more nailed down and how we're going to proceed with more community engagement.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amber. Okay. Any additional comments from the commission? Any from the public? All right. Well, then I think Chair will accept a motion to adjourn. Who would like to do it?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved, Jordan.
Second.
I'll second.
All right.
Wow.
I would say
Man.
Brian got in first and Jamil second. So all in favor by voice, just say yes. All right.
Aye.
We stand adjourned at 7:08 unanimously. Thanks everybody for your time tonight. Thank you staff for the work putting together our packet and this website, and we look forward to working with y'all on this.
Thank you all.
Thanks, team.
Thank
All
you
right.
guys. Really appreciate it.
See
Take
everybody in
care.
October.
Bye-bye.